Thank you so much. This is going to be, I believe, one of the most powerful panel discussion of the day. Uh, so we have gathered over here to discuss on the topic called converting entrepreneurship and innovation into economic growth to make India Atmanirbhar. This concept of Atmanirbhar and self-reliance came from the vision of the Prime Minister, and wherein he announced that India will be looking at having a $5 trillion economy, and then there are different components within that dreams, and we have noticed that even the state governments, for example, Uttar Pradesh is saying now we'll be contributing almost around 1 trillion to this idea of 5 trillion economy. Ultimately, all this growth is somehow related to as to how we are able to push growth in different sector and different areas. And there actually the skills becomes really important. The kind of workforce we are actually pushing into the market become really important because that is related to somehow the productivity. I'll begin with Professor Rangan Banerjee. Mr. Banerjee, if you could share something with the fact that most of the IITs and IIMs, they are the institution which is actually working at the very high end level of job creation and contribution to the national economy in indirect way. Could you share as to how you look at this concept of 5 trillion and what role actually our higher education institute could play into it from the perspective of creating the right sets of skills among students and possibly increasing the productivity of the masses?
We basically, if we look at it, educational institutions, the IITs, the IIMs, the entire educational institutions, the idea is that we create knowledge that will help society. And here we are looking at essentially providing a competitive advantage for our businesses. So if we want to create that ecosystem, we do have, for instance, if I give you examples of IIT Delhi, we do have ways in which our students and our faculty members can go ahead and incubate, create startups. We have a startup ecosystem. We leverage with the government, whether it is in the biotech area, whether it is in the cobotics area. We have a hub for cobotics. So we encourage our students and our faculty to run with their ideas and look at startups. We also have mechanisms by which we look at our intellectual property being protected in terms of patents and then licensing it with industry. We also look at ways in which we can work together with industry to jointly look at products. However, if we think in terms of being Atmanirbhar, often what is missing is the scaling of this. So even when we think in terms of the incubation or the startups, generally the aspiration levels are still, it is still not where we can create the entire ecosystem where we can manufacture to scale. And this is where we need to look at ways in which we can talk about the startup ecosystem and link that up with established industry. Because today, if you see, one needs to be globally competitive and one needs to have that additional advantage. And in order to do that advantage, we need to create an ecosystem where we can create it to a TRL level of 4 or 5. We can create something where we can have a product. We can have a prototype. But for that product to scale, we need to have the manufacturing, we need to have the marketing, we need to have the scaling. And in many areas, this is something which startups are doing. Startups are looking at converting. We have a startup which is looking at converting an IC engine vehicle into an electric vehicle. We have many startups which are looking at charging infrastructure, startups which are looking at various software things. But if we want to look at making a difference in the core industrial sector, in the manufacturing sector, in looking at scaling, we need to work together with industry to transform our ecosystem, to transform the innovation ecosystem where Together, it is the industry, the academia, and the government which creates an ecosystem where we will look at the cutting edge areas and provide a competitive advantage for our industry in the future, because we have to compete globally. And all, in most of the cases, in most of the countries, people are looking at this is about finally creating jobs, looking at employment, looking at investments, and the 5 trillion economy that you talked about. So we have to have a strategic forward looking viewpoint. We have to identify a few key areas and technologies where we can really make a difference, where India can have a strategic advantage. We do have in IIT Delhi, for instance, we do have an innovation ecosystem. We also started in this with our alumni. We created a nurture fund where the recent students were asked to make plans, and we supported 4 to 5 new startups with funding of about 50 lakhs initially for them to get into the prototype stage. This is in addition to the fact that we are encouraging our students. We are providing an option where students can take a deferred placement season. That means they can try out startups, they can come back, and they have they have the guarantee that they can go for placements. But however, if we really want to make a difference at the level where the country becomes competitive based on intellectual property, based on technology, we need to have a strategy. We need to have an ecosystem which is much more than what is existing today. And we need to look at the industry, the government, and the academia, identify a few areas, look at things which are a time horizon of 3 to 5 years. I'll give you another example. Recently, all the IITs got together and we created a complete indigenous 5G test bench. However, the large telecom companies are still prefer to buy tested buy technologies from global industry. So we need to create this ecosystem with in partnership with industry, academia, and government. And I think if we want to be serious about becoming Atmanirbhar, be serious about creating economic development in a large scale, we have to do things differently from what we are doing today. I'll end here.
Absolutely. Professor Banerjee, I agree with you. But on the 5G test front, that the indigenization that the IIT has been able to bring, for some of the system to get actually accepted by an ecosystem, at times it takes time. So if you look at the traditional global system that people actually opt for, they are multi-years old. So I'm sure down the line, as you have started, there are a lot of partners. So even the Indian companies are going to actually experiment initially. And once they have the trust, they will possibly rely on that. Now I'll come to you, sir. Before I go to the other speaker, we are actually talking about the concept of Atmanirbhar, and within Atmanirbhar, there is a goal of 5 trillion economy. And Atmanirbhar means that whatever that we should be able to produce, make in India within our country. And if you want to achieve the 5 trillion economy, there are some indicators. For example, right now, if you look at the indicator, which is the agriculture has a huge proportion, then you have a manufacturing, then you have the service sector, and that is across the country. So somehow there will be some different alignment down the line if we have to go to a 5 trillion economy. Would you like to share, based on your experience from an academic collaboration perspective, as to how our academic institute can help in terms of raising the productivity, in terms of imparting right sets of skill in our resources, so that the productivity could be enhanced?
To answer your question, let me put it this way, that you see, we need to create a culture of promoting ingenuity and also valorizing failure. It's like we need to make failures as part and parcel of life at the early stage of careers of people. You can't have a system where in 10th class, 12th class, everyone gets above 90, 95%, and you expect them to fail in the startup and not accept it, because one needs to accept that 90% of the startups typically do not survive. And first and foremost, we need to create a valorize failure, possibly accept it, and make it as that is, in some sense, possibly say that that's perfectly okay. In other words, there also have to be systems to create failures at an early stage of a career also. You can't have a grading system which is skewed on the right side, wherein everyone gets a plus and expect them to be part of the failures out there, right? So that is one. Second is, I think, promoting ingenuity also means finding ways and means wherein non-standardization is acceptable. That is, if you make things too standardized, let's say what I call as the indigo way of doing things in the airline industry, it's very difficult for people to find creativity or ways in which innovation can happen. Third, I think capacity building of the younger generation is extremely important. What I mean to say is that if we observe capacity building of younger generation, we need to have courses like business mechanics. Fine, there are courses which are there on terms of how to manage finance, how to manage marketing, etc., etc. But do we have a course on how GST registration can be done? Do we have a course on, let's say, what are economic offenses, how they are defined? Do we have courses on what is how to deal with police? Or do we have a course on how to go through a registration, that is a registration of a company through the ROC Act? So these are all what I call as business mechanics. So one part is what government possibly wants to do in terms of ease of doing business. But the other part is to make ease of doing business also actually, you can say, percolate down. We need to have the younger generation, in some sense, look forward to ways and means of having courses such as business mechanics. You don't need to be a graduate also to go through such a course. You don't need to have an MBA, etc. also. But after 12th, anyone who is keen on entrepreneurship, do we have a 6-month certificate program on business mechanics or entrepreneurship course? One example which quickly comes to my mind is Lemon School of Entrepreneurship in Nagpur, which possibly does that. But I'm sure there can be better examples out there. I hope these
Right,
are the points.
absolutely. I'll come to you now, sir. Both of them actually spoke about, and there is a very thin line that we need to have an ecosystem in place which promote research, technology, partnership, and therein I believe the IIMs, the IITs play a very important role, because most of the industry really gets attracted to the IITs for high-end research, and we have seen that there are a lot of outcomes also. Could you share actually, based on your experience, as to how we can possibly make those relationship and those collaboration more strong, and we could do some innovation on that?
You know, we're talking about innovation, entrepreneurship, and business growth. I would also like to add one more word in this, that is research. Because research is where that is we start, and then that gets converted to innovation, and then entrepreneurs comes and commercialize innovations, and that creates economic growth. Now let's understand, coming back to the India first, and then I'll come to my institute, IIM Sambalpur. So if you see, in terms of research and development, India currently, as per 2021 data published by Niti Aayog, we are $43 per capita, which is lowest among the BRICS and Asian countries. BRICS, like Russia, spend about $285 per capita. Brazil spend about $173 per capita. Malaysia spend about $293 per capita. China about $551 per capita, and US $679 per capita. In terms of percent of GDP, we spend about 0.7% of our GDP on R&D, which is again lowest among the, even many developing countries. Brazil is 1.16, South Africa is 0.83. So research, I think, is one area where India, of course, doing a lot of good job in few areas like space research, atomic research, and science and technology. But overall, I think in terms of GDP percent and in terms of per capita investment, it is among the lowest. And also, we have to see that 55% of R&D investment in India comes from government. It means the corporate sector actually are lagging behind in terms of supporting research and development, and that reflects in the kind of business our Indian industries have, mostly on the transactional side. They are not IPR-led business. They are mostly supply chain or logistics or services, which are support businesses, not the core business, which we don't create new business. We generally distribute the existing business. So that is the characteristics of Indian industries and Indian academic institutions. Now there is a lot of focus now, recently in IITs and IIMs particularly, where we are spending huge amount of time and resource in creating intellectual property research. We have high promotional policies to support this. So things are changing. I'm sure next 5-10 years, India will be different in research. Now coming to next element, that is innovation index. As for 2022 Global Innovation Index, India has reached 40th position. And this was 81 position in 2015. So in just 7 years, we have jumped very high. And I would say that credit goes to the government, the current government, because 2015, we were 81, and 2022 were 40th ranked in terms of Global Innovation Index, which is a very positive sign, I would say. The kind of policies and promotions and things are coming from government as well as industries and also academia. It shows that innovation index is improving. Now coming to entrepreneurship. And right now, entrepreneurship can be measured in terms of two elements. One is the new businesses, which is startup business. In terms of startups, India is already ranked number 3 in the world in terms of ecosystems of startups. In terms of number of startups, we have more than lakh startups registered, more than 500 unicorns, and we are very, very aggressive and competitive. Again, credit goes to government policies and the ecosystems. Now, what are the ecosystems for entrepreneurship? Traditionally, there were 4 elements of the ecosystems. The first, most important, was entrepreneur themselves. The second was venture capitalists, the funding. The traditional bankings are not really tuned to support startups. So you need a venture capitalist, an informal way of funding it. Third important ecosystem is in terms of government policies. What kind of ease of doing we have, ease of doing business we have. And the fourth is the kind of institutions we have. Now if you see, I can talk about my institute. I am Sambalpur. At a very early stage, we have set up incubation center. And I can see in the next 10 years, the business education will 100% shift to incubations and creation of business. And doing business or learning how to do business will be done away from the institute. It will go on to digital systems like robots, AI, machine learnings, blockchains. These are the systems which will help you to manage 99% of business. So therefore, there will be little less left for the business managers to manage business, but the focus will shift to creation of business. That is where the incubations become priority. And we have already created incubations where more than 30 incubators are already registered at IIM Sambalpur, and we are going to make it in a much bigger way and coming out the support system. Now coming to the growth, economic growth, the outcome. Now India is moved again in GDP. Like we were 6th last year. Today, this year we are 5th largest economy. Our GDP has reached to $3.5 trillion nominal basis, which is the 5th largest. And currently, India contributes about 7.5% of the world economy in terms of GDP. And if you really go back and see India in 1600, prior to British took us, British colony came, India was contributing 33% of GDP, world GDP. And when they left in 1947, we were 5%. And now we have reached 7.5%. And I'm sure GDP is going to grow faster, India. And therefore, we have a very bright future in terms of economic growth. I think we have to now see how this can be further accelerated. Right. So I can see the 2 very critical disruptions which is guiding the global business. And these 2 areas, India must focus, and India is focusing. The first driver is digitalizations. Global business are moving from traditional to digital platforms. Every business, service, manufacturing. And I can see next 10 to 20 years, 80% of business will be in the digital platforms. And therefore, you cannot miss digital revolutions in terms of Industry 4.0. And India is very well positioned. India has created the world's largest financial payment digital system, which nowhere in the world could do it. We are the largest digital payment systems. We are creating digital commerce for networks, ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce, by government again. And we have many other digital platforms. So therefore, digitalization India is leading in the world, and I'm sure we will be catching up. Second, drivers in the business in next coming years, next 30, 40 years, is on decarbonizations. Now, decarbonization means sustainability, and that is going to drive and give the direction to the entire business growth. And India currently, in terms of policy, we are well off, but in terms of actual contribution, we are quite low. I'm sure this will also pick up. And if these two things happens, then the third disruption, that is democratization of business, means every person should become entrepreneurs. And that is where the future of business is. So democratization of business is the future. I'm sure digitalization and decarbonization lead towards that. And I can see India taking up in that.
Right.
This
Absolutely.
is what thank
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on the part of, the technology is becoming a great enabler for most of the sector. And if you provide economic opportunity to the young people with right sets of the skills, the possibilities is huge. But Professor Maitri, I would like to focus on you on something different, which he mentioned on the research part. So what he was telling that currently the government is the one who is putting a lot of effort, lot of capital in research, and same amount is not actually being matched by the private organization. Despite the fact that if you look at most of the top global companies, they have second biggest research center in India. You name any company in the world, Cisco, Microsoft, SAP of the world, they all have the second largest research center in India after their home country. That shows that we do not have the shortage of right sets of skills, resources in terms of the research. What is the challenge is that possibly the incentive, the right set of environment that we need to offer. Could you share your views as to how you look at this gap that is happening between the private companies and the government organization, or a government academic institute doing more research, and maybe the private universities and college might not be having the same level of effort and might not be doing the same thing?
So I think as far as research is concerned, I must tell you, Government of India, as per the National Education Policy 2020, India Research Foundation, last year budget, our finance minister has allocated 50,000 crore rupees for India Research Foundation for multidisciplinary research. That is a great beginning, happened as a part of NEP 2020. And apart from that, most of the institutions, as Ranjanji rightly said, IIT Bombay, of course, he is from IIT Bombay, and I am alumnus of IIT Bombay, but IIT Delhi and Bombay, all those IITs and many IIMs, they are incubation centers and ecosystem they have created as far as research is concerned. For example, I'll give 4 or 5 examples I'll quote as far as IIM Nagpur is concerned. Number one, we have INFED, IIM Nagpur Foundation for Entrepreneurship Development, and it has been recognized as a center of excellence by the DST and Ministry of MSME. And we get a seed money from Government of India and MSME, and we select the right ideas, and we select the proper panel, expert panel, and we allocate the fund. Already we have trained 42 men entrepreneurs, and out of that in the area of entrepreneurship, and 6 of them have moved from startup to scale up. Even though we are just 7-year-old institution located in Nagpur, all of you know that Nagpur is the center point of India. It has a larger responsibility over the other institution being as a center point. So we have started that. And another important thing, I think Professor Kakani mentioned about agri-business. IIM Nagpur has been identified as a center of excellence by the government of Maharashtra. ADB supported a project called Magnet, Maharashtra Agri-Business Network Society. And through that, we are training the farmers as well as farmer producer organizations, FPOs. So how to raise the bar of the farmers instead of selling the raw product, how to sell the, the value added product. For example, instead of selling the milk, how to sell the paneer. A group of farmers coming together, NGOs put the paneer making machine and they will add the value and sell the product. All of you know that today doctors are in the business of business, why not farmers? So that is how agri-business is one of the area, and we have entire Maharashtra, we have been allocated the main crops in the area of Vidarbha and Marathwada, that is orange and sweet lime. So we are training the farmers in that area and we are working with them very closely with some of the NGOs. That is the second experiment we are doing as far as Atmanirbhar and also raising the bar is concerned. Number 3, what we and of course you know that Nagpur orange is it is a table fruit, it is not a juice. So we are also, the experiments are going on along with the research organization. We have tied up with 26 R&D organizations as a part of INFED to experiment and to come out with the innovative kind of product out of the orange and sweet lime. This is the second one. And third is concerned, Government of India, Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship identified IIM Nagpur as a institute for Mahatma Gandhi Fellowship. Maharashtra 36 districts and Sikkim 4 districts, total 40 districts. We are creating one fellow, it is a 2-year program, and 40 fellows we are creating, and these fellows will be working very closely with the commissioner and collectors, and so that they will develop the skill entrepreneurs and also develop the small entrepreneurs working in the area of districts and tehsils. That is the third initiative we have taken. And as Professor Jaiswal rightly said today, just recently, all of you know that COP27 is over and COP26, lot of talk about net zero and all. We are the first institution to collaborate with Coal India Limited to start the program in the area of ESG, environment, social and governance. These areas we are associated, and we have second range of programs we have completed. Again, the series of program we are going to work with them. And as far as digital transformation, again, Professor Jaiswal rightly stressed on that. In this disruptive world, digitalization is going to play important role. We are working very closely with Hindustan Petroleum Corporation. They identified 9 IIMs, and each one they have given one, and Nagpur has been given 2 assignments. One is a business development, domestic as well as international. And second one, we are working on the digital transformation in the Hindustan Petroleum Corporation. So these are some of the things we are doing, and these things will definitely bring a new result. And as I think innovation index we are already up, and according to one prediction, India today it is number 5th. But if you go by one international agency's prediction, 2023. China will take over US, but 2035, India will take over both US and China. At that time, our national education policy 2020 would have been 100% implemented. So that is going to be a game changer. These are a few of the inputs, and I will take up later.
Professor Pawan Kumar, I'll come to you now. I think what Professor Maitri was in the end actually alluding to the fact that possibly the India could overtake China and US. These are highly aspiration, and these policy that government has put in place, and our aim of touching around 5 trillion economy or being an Atmanirbhar, creating things within country, all those things are completely aligned. Even the national education policy, a lot of focus on that. Now, for that thing to be achieved, how do you manage your workforce? What kind of people you are actually producing who are going to work in the industry? That really becomes important. And you know that now there is a lot of focus on high-end technologies. I mean, those technology which has possibilities of creating a high level of scale, high level of automation, high level of accuracy. Could you share based on your experience, especially from the workforce of tomorrow perspective, what are those key skills that you think that our educator as well as the students needs to imbibe in order to possibly reach somewhere around 5 trillion, maybe 4, 3.5 something?
Very interesting question, and the topic is very deep and profound, and actually is a humble attempt to set pace for India's development in future. See, there are many criticalities with how we build not only culture of entrepreneurship and innovation, but how to convert these actions into actual bottom line. And what academic institutions need to do in that direction. First of all, we have to have a clear understanding about Atmanirbhar and also entrepreneurship in which domain of the economy. Before that, I would like to quote Peter Drucker, who said, only mediocres enter the scheme created by others. And on this parameter, I am also mediocre, because Government of India established IIM Tiruchirappalli, and I became part of that. So I am the first mediocre according to Peter Drucker. This we tell to students, that you see, either you enter into the scheme created by others and start with air-conditioned office, or you should be able to enter into a cement bag and try to soil your hand and put your, let us say, entire effort at the grassroots level. This needs to be understood by entrepreneur. In Bengali, there is a phrase, Chondi Path theke Juto Shelai Projonto. I'm not a Bengali, but I can speak it. This tells about the entire range of entrepreneurs' behavior. Chondi Path means the highest order of the things. Going to ministry, persuading them, understanding policy, these are a Chandi Path. Juto Silai means ordinary work. Of course, we should respect every kind of labor, no doubt. But entrepreneur need to have that range. And as a student of behavioral science, I have been saying, anybody should not search for a point equilibrium of personality. But we should develop range of personality. When we need to be submissive, when we need to be assertive, when we need to speak more, when we need to speak less, when we should not speak at all, when the silence is the best communication. That is a range of personality only entrepreneur need to develop. That we need to develop. We are teachers, we need to inculcate in them. Secondly, Atmanirbhar does not mean everything we shall produce, that we know these all things. But sometimes I find even brilliant students are innocent. The moment we say some Sanskrit-based word, Atmanirbhar, means we should not depend on anyone. But these humble, innocent students should know that we have 3-stage growth. One is we suffer with dependence syndrome, then we become independent, and then we become interdependent. We are sovereign countries, politically we are independent countries, but in the field of economics, we need to have interdependence. Bertil Ohlin long back said that based on competitive advantage, we should produce. And we should know what we should not produce. When I was in 20s, my wisdom said that this should be done, these should be done. But when I turned 50, I realized only knowing what should be done is not important. Clearly knowing what should not be done is more important than knowing what should be done. So these all understanding needed. In B school, we are trying for that. For example, humbly in IIM Tiruchirappalli, we are also taking our steps to create entrepreneurial culture. We have compulsory course called entrepreneurial management. It means not only one who will become entrepreneur, but also an employee, how one can develop entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial approaches. Basically, I'm a student of behavioral science, so I will like to emphasize that we need to give them certain training called assertiveness training, resilience training, or say need for achievement training. I found very surprisingly, need for achievement training is emphasized for entrepreneurial training right from 1970s in India, and need for achievement, actually its concept given by McClelland is very close to what has been talked in 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita called Karma Yoga, because our students again are innocent. We say they are intelligent, but many times I find they are innocent. They think need for achievement means hankering for achievement or maximizing achievement. No, Need for achievement by Macmillan says, need for achievement means a drive for enjoying whatever you are doing. And what can be better definition other than this of Karma Yoga? So these all skill sets we need to actually inculcate among students. We have also created Finance Lab, and we are also going to create now Incubation Center, which has not yet come in IIM Tiruchirappalli. Apart from just 1 minute, I'll just take, you see, as far as business is concerned, we need to tell students and would-be entrepreneurs, if you chase money, you will end up with less money. And if you know what human beings need, and you chase that need, keeping profit and money as byproduct, you will get more money. So if you want to be really wealthy, don't chase wealth. Wealth should chase you. And that's why right kind of training is needed in all the functional domain of management, including finance and marketing and human resource and operations, supply chain, and then how to integrate them in a grand way so that, as Stephen Covey said, entrepreneurs should be able to see two things together, individual tree in the forest and the entire forest at one go. That drishti will make you to integrate your macro and micro view together. Thank you for
And
time.
that drishti might become from the domain expertise as well as the soft skill, what he is referring to. If I can put both these things together. Professor Agnihotri, I'll come to you. I would like to focus on, the skills of tomorrow, the workforce of tomorrow. What are the things that we need to actually put in today in order to achieve? Because these targets and these illusion of being Atmanirbhar, and as the Professor Pawan mentioned that, there are things where you can't be 100% Atmanirbhar, which is perfectly fine, but you should try. And as many things as possible could be done within the country. Could you share your views, especially from the possibilities of putting the right sets of resources, skilling, and training in our future generation?
You started your question by asking me on what skill set would be required for tomorrow. And my honest answer and humble answer is, I don't know. Rather, no one knows. Okay? We didn't know before 5G came in. Or just see a simple impact of 5G. Indian aviation industry got affected because they could not land in the US because our planes were 4G enabled and 5G was what was required over there. So basically, if at all I have to answer and I have to summarize it in one way, I would say we must know how to unlearn and learn new things, which is the only thing which is constant and going to remain constant. So we prepare our students for tomorrow. When we prepare them for tomorrow, I always say that we prepare them to face uncertainties. Certain things that they did not know till yesterday or till today, but they are going to face tomorrow. If it is on entrepreneurship you're asking me specifically, I would say we want them to develop that attitude of an entrepreneur. As a manager, when I join an organization, I expect certain factors. I should have a cabin. People always see the size of the cabin and that determines your status in the organization. I must have a secretary, I must have a staff, I must have this. Well, an entrepreneur has to create all that. Okay. I'll give example of my own son. He was working with a multinational as a head of a particular vertical. 9 months ago, he left his job and has started on his own. Today, he says, Papa, I lift the boxes also today. Now there is no more car given by the company. So he grumbles, now, should we change the car? The car cost of petrol is too high. That's an entrepreneur. One has to get into entrepreneur spirit and then ask, what can I do? How can I do it? And not who else will do it initially. So I would always say that we need to train our students to face these real life challenges to the world. We must ask them a question, not why, but why not. That will help them look at the world in a different way. In fact, in the morning when I come in, I bumped into a student of mine who was my student 12 years ago. Is he around in the campus? Amritanshu, are you there in the audience? No, perhaps he has left. He didn't want to hear me once again. He has done enough for 2 years. Okay, 2010 graduate of IIM Calcutta. And now he sweetly told me that two of my students from that batch have started a new company of their own. Okay. I was sweetly and nicely surprised. And these two were the best students in the batch, got placed in slot 0, had best of the jobs, and they have left it and now started working on different aspects of their own. So basically, I would say that we need to prepare them for that mindset of accepting challenges, accepting to go without any earnings. There won't be any fixed source of earning for you. How will you manage? Going back to my son, I'm taking my son as an example of this generation. He ran short of money that he had saved. He took loan. Thanks to Prime Minister's Yojana, now you can get loan easily from the bank. He took loan of 5 lakh rupees initially to begin with. Being a middle class Maharashtrian from a working class family, he is also scared to take loan, bigger loan. Started with 5 lakhs loan, invested in his business. Now ran short of working capital. He has taken on a job with Hindustan Unilever as a part-time executive and working on certain project for 3 days in a week. Rest 3 days or 4 days he devotes for his own business. So we need to prepare students for this type of eventualities. Take risk. Ask why not. What can we do as business schools or as educational institutes? I think one of my earlier speakers did cover it rightly. Give them the support. Tell them, yes, come back to us if you need. You need any advice on marketing, finance, operations, we are here to help you. Offer them that. Give them the placement support. Try it out. What will happen? You will not succeed. Fine. Come back. We'll offer you a job. Placement holidays. 2 years ago, 2 years placement holiday. Come back and join. We'll see that you get a good job. And one thing I must appreciate in the industry today, at my time, if I had started something and I had failed, it would have been difficult for me to get a job in the industry. Today, industries look at this as not failure, but someone has tried to do something new and in 2 years, he has learned something as an entrepreneur and he would be a better manager. And they do prefer such employees better. So tell them that. We have entrepreneurship cell and which is doing pretty well at IIM Sirmoor. 4 of my students of this batch have already decided, they have already registered their venture, okay, and they have decided to work on them. 2 of my students have already got patents for the product that they are going to manufacture. For want of secrecy, I can't divulge more about that product, but they already got a patent and they're working on it. And their firm has been already evaluated at 20 crores, even before they have stepped out of it. All their vacations they use for that. All their projects they use for that. Okay? And I'm happy that these 4 units or 3 units are going to work on certain different things. One last point I would like to say, we have been discussing since morning about entrepreneurship, contribution to the society, contribution to the economy, trillion economy, etc., etc. But I would like to differentiate between 2 things in entrepreneurship. There are many of which it's a worth studying aspect. How many entrepreneurs are coming out with services and how many entrepreneurs are coming out with manufacturing units? If you really want to accelerate the growth of economy, we need more and more investment in manufacturing, be it on a small scale and less on services. All of us, those who have studied economics, we know the concept of multiplier and accelerator. An investment in manufacturing unit will accelerate the growth and multiply the economy. That's what they say. So I would advise, actually I would suggest, not advise, but I would always suggest ET to think of that next time when you're thinking of your summit. Thank you.
Absolutely. We still have 5 minutes, so maybe 30 seconds to you if you have some last word to share, each one of you.
One particular point I'd like to say is, you see, finally, if we look at a country context such as India, community-based governance mechanisms are very powerful. Whether it is Malabar Muslims, Catholic Syrians, or Marwadis, or Gujaratis, or whatever it is. Entrepreneurship, can it move out of these communities and move into the hands of the larger folks? I think also is a very important point to look forward to. Because there have been enough experiments, for example, even in a clustering of Tirupur, they tried to give loans, but all of the loans, because of the automatic KYC which happens when you belong to certain communities, also ends up going there only. It does not cross those communities. And hence, I think in some sense, mechanisms to promote entrepreneurship beyond these communities is very, very important.
Professor Banerjee.
I'd like to go back to the question which you asked of why industry is not investing in research. And I think we need to try to see, typically what has happened is there is a industry has been used to getting technology and has not initially, of course that's changing, but has not been having a research culture. So the ecosystem, similarly, they do not have confidence in our academic institutions. So I think if you have to break this and change this ecosystem, together we have to address this problem, and we have to have a slightly longer term focus, because if we have to create an ecosystem, the industry wants a ready product. We in the IITs or in the IIMs or in any of our institutes, we can give you a new technology, we can show that it works, but it is not yet a product ready to market. So this gap which is there is something that we need to plan for. We have to plan for this in a few strategic areas, because finally it is about, as you said, we want to create a competitive advantage in areas where we will be in manufacturing, we get that advantage. So that is not going to happen in a business as usual case. So we have to look at mechanisms to scale some of these, to look at manufacturing and scaling, taking the technologies that we have. And this is where I think industry, government and academia, we need to, because the level of investment in R&D in our country is really insignificant, right, in physical terms, in actual terms, as percentage terms. The level of investment from industry in our country as a percentage of turnover is again insignificant. We can give you the numbers, but you can just see that it's growing. Right. But if you want to make it where we get a competitive advantage, most countries are looking at a strategy where we would like to see development coming from the innovation ecosystem and are investing heavily in some of these key areas. Right. So I think we cannot compete
Absolutely.
unless we are at that level of investment.
Professor Jaiswal.
Yeah, so there are three important players: industry, academia, and government policies. And there are three important initiatives, that is research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. If you look into next 5 to 15 years, I would say, where should we focus? I would say we all should focus, all three, in entrepreneurship, increase the GDP, make India top 3 GDP country, top economic countries in next 5 years. Then move to innovation, and then, because you need huge money for the research. Right now, we don't have enough fund to create a research fund, and therefore, we need to increase our GDP by entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship should be the focus. And it should happen in the new industries, for example, semiconductor, electronics, and renewable energies. These are the sectors where India need to be Atmanirbhar, and then only we will be able to fund and make sure our manufacturing and agriculture grow in terms of digitalizations.
Right. Professor Mathur.
So my take is a need of an hour to take the entrepreneurship and innovation to the next orbit is the industry professionals, the technological organizations like IIT, management institutions like IIM and R&D organizations and scholars and the faculty member, all the 5 stakeholders come together, and they should be working as a innovation and research park, which as research park is in Chennai. I think in Nagpur also, Nagpur is located in the heart of the industrial belt in multi-product special economic zone. So ET and odd industries, we are all working together and building this kind of ecosystem. Maharashtra government is supporting for that. I think that is need of an hour for every state and everywhere, so that we can take this to the next orbit. Thank you very much.
Professor Singh.
Since we are faculty from IIT and IIM, I think my quick response will be contextual here. We have to treat entrepreneurship and innovation as JEE and CAT examination, because I don't think anybody till date has faced in CAT exam any question, or in JEE any question which he or she has already solved. But then how one is able to solve? Only one who has solved in one domain hundreds and hundreds of questions and answers, he or she would be able to crack a particular question in that domain. So future is not known. What will come in CAT or JEE question is not known. Tomorrow is not known. But I will divide this thing. Tomorrow is not known itself in two parts. One is humorous and one is serious. Humorous means it is not humorous because humor is also coming from deep truth. Even 10,000 years back, we did not know what will happen tomorrow. Why we are saying today that we do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. ये तो अटल सत्य है. Nobody knew tomorrow, even at the time of Kapil Muni. So tomorrow is unknown. That is only on lighter side. But on serious side, I will say, because of, you see, human mind to innovate what society needs. And on other side, technology is actually getting in new dimensions. It is just like kaleidoscopic shake and new technology is coming. I find this is the age where technology is actually moving much faster than, say, how we will design human society. And that's why we need to respect technology, and accordingly, we should keep our wisdom itself in molten state, not in concretized state, so that we can keep on adjusting with that changed technology. हिंदी में एक ग्रामर है, ग्रामर में कहता है कर्ता ने कर्म को करण से. So karta means the doer and karam means the action, and karan is upakaran. Upakaran is technology. Ye karan jo hai, hats off to technology innovator who are actually also intervening into sociological interventions and change in the society.
Right.
Let us be very careful of that. Thank you.
Last word to you, Professor Agnihotra.
Okay. Lastly, I would like to say, we IIMs and IITs are also called as centrally funded institutes. Being centrally funded institutes, we also have some responsibility towards society. And therefore, given the trained manpower that we have, especially on the faculty side, perhaps the best of the faculty members, I'm not saying others don't have, some of the best faculty members work with IIMs and IITs. So I would always say that IIMs and IITs and NITs must come forward and contribute to the state by helping. Most of the states have incubation centers, by help them manage and run those incubation centers. We are making an humble beginning in Himachal Pradesh, okay, and we can contribute that way to the local incubation centers by advising them, by guiding them, and by mentoring them. And that's how we can give a boost to the incubations as well as research and innovation that is taking place in the economy at the grassroots level. Thank you.
Right. We have completely exhausted our time. Thank you, each one of you, for sharing your views on converting entrepreneurship and innovation into economic growth to make India Atmanirbhar. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful panelist. Thank you.